What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So today we're going to be talking about the new and returning player experience to Black Desert, because the Heido Ball is right around the corner, or you might be watching it after the Heido Ball, and thought about returning to the game or trying it out. And I made a list of things that I wanted to talk about for beginners and someone who hasn't been playing the game for a while, so I thought maybe these would be good tips to help you get caught up super quick. And to not make this a super long video, we're just going to talk about some things that I think are important. And with that said, when you first start the game, you're probably going to be prompted to make a new character, or if you have no idea what you played before, it's probably a good idea to look at it. Because in this game currently we have, you know, a bunch of different characters, at least 30 something new characters, and then like over 40 character slots. So you could try everything if you wanted to, but with that said, you're probably wondering, what should you play? And that's probably the hardest part to explain to people, simply because everyone has a different play style. I have a bunch of videos talking about what class would be good to you, but you can always just ask other people, watch them streams, videos, or even just leave it in the comments and I'm happy to point you in the right direction. Just tell me about your play style. But one thing that is super important is finding a character that you like, because this game has a lot of content where it's like grinding, and you're gonna probably want to play something that you enjoy over the meta. At least that's my opinion. I don't think there's anything wrong with playing the meta always, but you know, since you're going to be spending a lot of time on one character mostly, just try to find something that you enjoy playing, because you'll burn out a lot slower than just chasing the meta every month or whenever that changes. So find a new class you like, make a new character on the seasonal servers. And what that is basically, if you haven't been playing for a while, the season server is something you can play on to help you get caught up with specialized gear, and it helps your progression go a lot faster. How do you know? When you're in your character slots, it'll show you like a little yellow icon that says seasonal. And what happens there is basically you're getting expedited growth, and you get Tuvala gear. So this gear is like easier to enhance, and they give you the materials to enhance it pretty easily, so that way newer players and returning players can, you know, I wouldn't say get caught up necessarily, but let's say an end game is over here and then a beginner's over here. It gets you like, you know, maybe 30 or 40% of the way in a significantly fast amount of time, and then after that is, after seasonals, is kind of like playing the tutorial and finishing it. Then that's where the game begins. So yeah, it's pretty easy. This is roughly your gear, more or less. When you get full Pen Tuvala, it goes a little bit further, but for the most part, seasonals is fun. You get extra XP, you level up faster, and it's something that I would recommend to everyone else. Next thing you're going to want to do when you come into the game is immediately change your settings. There's a lot of dumb things in this game that I think should be turned on and off by default. I have an entire video. I'll leave a link in the description to all the settings. But the most important one that you guys should look for is go to the general settings. Change your quality of life, show and hide, and alerts. By default, all these alerts are on. And you know, when you first come into the game, you're probably going to see notifications at the top, like this item has been sold, this item has been registered, this person hit an enhancement or an upgrade. I promise you don't need to see any of that. There's probably a lot of stuff in your chat box tab as well. You could turn that off until you think you need to turn it on, then turn it on. And so if you want to look at a more detailed video of all my settings and everything I use for like graphics, performance, how to get higher FPS and everything, I'll leave that in the description. But for new players, to not get overwhelmed, at least turn all these alerts off until you think you need it. And then, yeah, so quality of life, everything in the general settings, and then hotkey mapping if you need it. So everything else is personal preference to you. The next thing I want to talk about is finding a guild in this game. And I know Black Desert is mostly a solo game, but there's actually a lot of benefits of being in a guild for Black Desert. So whether you come in to play this game solo for the most part, or you want to play with friends, using the group finder or the find party and platoon finder to do group content, or finding a guild in the game is probably one of those things you should probably look into. So no matter what particular thing you want to do in this game, whether you're a PvPer, PvPer, or life skiller, just find a guild, and then you could find all the different tags and find a guild that works for you. And the real reason you should do it, besides, you know, the whole social interaction part, is you can actually just get a bunch of guild buffs and everything. So like all this, you'll see at the top, you get bonuses for your guilds just being in the guild, and a lot of extra stuff along with it. So yeah, bonus stats, just being in there. You don't even have to do anything, but socializing with and meeting new people is also pretty fun. So yeah, join a guild that works for you, whether you're doing whatever, PvP, PvP, PvE, and life skills. There's always something for you. All right, so the next thing is the whole gear progression. This is also a video that I have. It's very detailed and super long, but to keep it short, you go from Tuvala gear. This is when we talked about what you get from seasonals, and all the way into progression and doing a bunch of quests and going into the past tutorial into endgame. So there's a lot of things I want to talk about that a lot of people will like kind of skip over, is whether you should go into like a certain path or not. So this is something that, you know, most people will probably spend most of their BDO career chasing. So there's different kinds of gear, some for PvE and PvP, and then there's life skill gear entirely, whether you're looking at, you know, different armors or like crafted clothes and functional for life skillers. It's kind of like you're playing a different game if you're a life skiller, simply because there's different types of gear and everything you should get. Whereas if you're just PvEing, there's a more standardized route for everything. But how you do it is the journey, and there's no one set way of going about getting your gear. It's like if you like life skilling, you get your silver through that, and then you get your gear. If you like PvEing and PvPing, you do that. But at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is how you get your gear, and most of it's kind of streamlined going forward towards the end game. So if you want to watch a more detailed video on how I would go about gear progression as a newer player, every single step that I would do past Tuvala and seasonal, I'll leave a link in the description to that. But gear progression is probably one of the biggest things in this game, and you know, that's the journey of it. Because I guess how I would say it's different is, if you've ever played a traditional MMO like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, you just go level up and do the end game dungeons and raids, and then get the best in slot gear, right? And then you wait for the next expansion. In BDO, your gear actually means something, and it feels like you've earned it one way or the other. So it's kind of like how long it takes you. It's about the journey, whether you like that or not. That is a big part of it. Every piece of gear you have, you feel like you've earned. So yeah, gear progression is probably the biggest part of the game, no matter what you're doing. And the next thing I want to talk about is trying new game modes, trying new life skills. Whether or not you're a new player, you're probably confused on, hey, what do I do in this game? So let's start with the one that most people probably came into the game with the whole grinding. You heard about a lot of character development and where do you grind. So they recently added a new feature into the game called recommended zones. The way it works is, very briefly, so this is your gear, right? This is what we call sheet AP and DP. So like this number, it means all the stats over here into this number over here. And then we also have a lot of other stats you can look at. So if you have total stats and then species, for the most part, you don't have to worry about the species until you get to that point. But total stats just means all of your buffs included. So like if you have any sort of, you know, crystals with gear stats on it, or artifacts with numbers, and then all your extra abilities with everything, that's where total stats comes in. So what most people say when they see like why is this number so big? It's because it's just adding your numbers over here plus all of the buffs you have currently going on. So if you hear people saying something called sheet AP, it's white number essentially, or number over here with all your just gear combined, and then total is everything buffed. So why is that important? Because if you look over here and you see stats, this is something that people look at, whether it's more for, you know, PvE and PvP, but it is kind of important to look at because you could look at detailed and brackets. And this is something, once you get more into the mid game, you start looking at more entirely. So yeah, you just kind of scroll down here and you see all these, like, what kind of, the higher your sheet AP, the more benefits and bonuses you get over here. So either way, it's something to look at once you start getting a little bit more gear. I would say probably when you're end game of season or going into the mid game is when you start looking at all these numbers. So yeah, then after that, now that we figured that out, the monster zone info, this is your sheet, and then it'll tell you what these total stats are for every grind spot. What I would recommend doing is probably just looking at the recommended zones. I have a more detailed video on best grind spots. I would say the recommended is pretty accurate, but people don't want to pop all their buffs just to see what the game recommends. That's why I made another video talking about all of that, and it's pretty detailed for every AP level, whether you're a beginner, going into the end game, returning. I talk about every single region, every single spot. It's super helpful, and you know, I've just been playing this game for a long time, tried every spot, and I would say it's pretty accurate. Also took data from Garmoth, and I've also asked other people, so you know, it's pretty accurate. So let's say you're on the other side of the game. All you want to do is life skills. What do? How do you get started? What I would recommend. Okay, so over here, these are all your life skills, right? My recommendation, if you are a beginner and you don't know what to do, is pick 1 or 2 life skills you enjoy doing. Keep doing those, and then as you get higher up into levels of that, start adding another life skill to that rotation. Eventually, the goal is to learn them all, but it's very overwhelming if you just do them like all at once. So I would try to start at 1 or 2 and then add to it every now and then. They all kind of work together in a way of, like, let's say you gather materials, right? Collecting materials for whatever else, or fishing. These are 2 very good early game ones that you should probably start doing because you get materials. And then same with hunting, but that one's a little bit more advanced in a way. So you get the materials from these 3 life skills. What do you do with it? You either cook them, alchemy, or process them, no matter what you do with them. And then you turn them into different items or materials that either sell for more, or you can craft whatever stuff you need. So I would say of cooking, alchemy, processing is the most AFK one. You really don't do anything with it. You just turn the materials from tier 1 to tier 2. Let me give you an example right here. So let's say you have some logs or whatever, timbers, right? Let's call these tier 1 materials. These are the easiest one to get. And then you turn those timbers into planks. We'll call these tier 2. You turn the planks into plywoods, and then we call it tier 3. You turn tier 1s to tier 3s, and then use it to make items or sell it, and then that's how you make your money. If you're doing any cooking or alchemy, you're making foods and stuff like PvE buffs, PvP buffs, potions and elixirs for alchemy, and a lot of mid to end game players, if you're doing any sort of PvE, PvP, and even life skill, will always use these buffs. So there's like an endless supply. Gatherers are needed to do cooking and alchemy, and then if you're a life skiller, you benefit the PvEers and their PvPers. So it's definitely something to look into. I would say cooking and alchemy, easy to learn, hard to master, just because there's so many recipes. The market often changes, so finding something you enjoy doing could be profitable one day and then less profitable the next. Other life skills that are kind of not unique, but they are unique in BDO, as in it's more than just one step. Training horses, it's common in all the other MMOs and RPGs I've ever played, but this one actually has, like, you know, different horses. Your main source of transportation in this game is through a horse, and ultimately it's like playing a different game. If you like catching horses, breeding, you know, getting the best horse, going from point A to point B the fastest, this might be fun for you. Trading, not really in the game, like it is, but it isn't. The main concept of trading isn't, as that one's being reworked, but there's a lot of different features. Not something really worth looking into as of now. Farming gets you the materials you need for doing cooking and alchemy and all that stuff, or getting your contribution point number higher. Always nice. Selling and bartering is just playing a different game. We've all seen like boat content in other games, but Black Desert actually does this pretty well and differently. So if you want to try doing any sort of sailing and bartering, your ultimate goal is to make a boat and make all the best boat gear. Now it's kind of like PvE, where you're just getting the best gear to grind, you know, the highest grind spot you can. But for boats, you know, in the ocean, your goal is to make the boat gear and then fight sea monsters, do boat PvP, and, you know, so on. It's like playing a different game entirely. There's a lot of bartering, which is, you know, kind of like trading, but in the ocean. You get a boat, get materials, bring them to the whole bartering system. It's actually kind of good. It's very relaxing. And basically the idea of this is you get like a tier 1 material, right? It goes from white all the way to orange. You get the white material, turn it into green, then blue, then yellow, then orange. And then once it's at orange, that's where all the profit comes in. Yeah, it's a fun activity. Something that, you know, I think you have to enjoy doing it to enjoy it. But it is very calming and relaxing if you don't feel like grinding all day. Something to try out on the side. Or, yeah, just sailing the ocean, fighting sea monsters. I think it's very cool. So, yeah, that's a lot of that. And then if you're a PvPer, there's a lot of different game modes. We have Red Battlefield. Well, Arena of Solar Season just ended, but yeah, that's one you could do, like Gear Cap PvP, Node Wars, Red Battlefield, you know, all that kind of stuff. So if you're into PvP, whether you're doing it for Gear Cap or not, there's always a place for PvPers to learn. And, you know, Node Wars, what you would do is join a Node War guild, and basically you look at all this stuff and like filter into the different tabs, and you could find what guilds are like different tiers. Higher tiers means you need more gear, and then there's everything else. Like same thing with the ocean PvP with, you know, Blue Battlefield, there's different stuff. But yeah, no matter what, whether you're a beginner or not, there's always a lot of different things for you. Definitely try out the new game modes and everything I talked about. I probably have a video. I'll leave it in the description. So if anything caught your attention, you could either ask and I'll point you in the right direction, or I have a guide on it that's way more detailed and will probably be helpful for you. So with that said, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoy the Heidel Ball if you're watching it live in the upcoming week. Yeah, it's this week. Hopefully something new will catch your attention. But if you're new and you need help, trust me, there's a lot to learn in this game, and I completely understand. Just ask, and I'm happy to point people in the right direction. Anyway, with that said, I'll see you guys later. Have a fantastic day. Peace.